The separation between Kyle Richards and Mauricio Umansky is not getting any easier for the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills stars. In the upcoming episode of The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, Richards sits with her therapist/life coach as they discuss her current woes, including being an empty nester and how her family dynamic has changed since she and Mauricio moved on. Being alone in the home will be a first for Richards, and she has some resentment. With Umansky taking their daughter, Portia Umansky, to Europe, she divulges the truth. Richard says, the fact that he took Portia alone. I've never been away from Portia like that. Ever. And he's going to do a guy's trip. He goes and lives his life. He's having fun, and I've kind of been just working. And I know that that's what being separated is supposed to be, taking this time to figure out everything. And then she concludes with, everyone is like, are you getting divorced? Are you getting divorced? Everybody asks me that. I think I'm anxious and I'm getting impatient. I'm impatient because I want to know what my life's gonna be. Kyle Richards is struggling to live her best life. Kyle Richards seems to be jealous of her ex's ability to move on and live his best life. When pressed by her therapist on why she can't do it as well, she is reluctant and hesitant, but admits that she supposes she could. Since the couple announced their separation, there have been headlines dominating the news cycle about how they've each moved on. For Umansky, it has included many dates and adventures. However, Umansky was involved in a skiing incident that he is reportedly recovering from. Richards, on the other hand, has been involved in a close connection with country singer Morgan Wade, despite it not being a part of the story on The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. During her recent Amazon live stream, Richards admitted, "We are very good friends who care about each other." Despite no movement with any divorce proceedings, the former couple is keeping their children as their priority. Richards recently revealed on The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills after show that she no longer has a shrine to Umansky, in the same way her co-star, Dorit Kemsley, has of her ex, PK Kemsley. Nevertheless, there is progress despite the stalled divorce. A new dawn for Kyle Richards. The sun had barely started to rise over the sprawling hills of Beverly, casting a golden glow over the palm trees and manicured lawns of Kyle Richards' home. A place that once held the sounds of laughter, children's voices, and the shared moments of a family now felt oddly quiet. The house, with its expansive rooms and high ceilings, felt more like a cavern than a home. The emptiness was suffocating. Kyle sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the photograph of her family, taken years ago when everything felt simpler. A time before the separation, before the headlines, before the whispers behind her back. It had been a week since Mauricio left with their daughter, Portia, for a European adventure. A trip that Kyle couldn't bring herself to go on, and a reality she wasn't ready to face. Her fingers gently traced the edges of the frame, but she quickly pulled her hand away, as though she were afraid of opening up the floodgates of emotion. The truth was, she was alone now, alone in the home that once echoed with the vibrant sounds of her children. Alone in the silence of a new life that she didn't know how to navigate. The separation had been hard, and yet it was something Kyle knew was necessary. She and Mauricio had been through so much together, but their paths had diverged in ways neither of them had anticipated. And now they were living in parallel lives, with no real connection except the bond they shared through their children. The question that hung over her was whether they would ever truly find their way back to each other, or if they were destined to remain apart forever. The unknown was agonizing. As she prepared herself for the day ahead, Kyle's mind wandered to the last conversation she had with her therapist. It had been a raw, emotional session, one where she found herself admitting things she hadn't yet confronted. The struggle of being an empty nester, the feeling of resentment that was building inside her, and the loneliness that seemed to be creeping into every corner of her heart. But it wasn't just the loneliness that weighed on her, it was the jealousy that simmered beneath the surface. She remembered telling her therapist how she felt about Mauricio's life now, how easy it seemed for him to move on, to go on trips with friends, to date, to explore the world. Meanwhile, she was stuck in Beverly Hills, working, trying to hold everything together. The fact that he took Portia alone, Kyle had said in that moment, her voice tight with emotion. I've never been away from her like that. Ever. And now he's off living his life. He's having fun. And here I am, just working. I'm working all the time. And I know that's what this separation is supposed to be about, taking time to figure out everything. But it's hard, really hard. Her therapist had listened carefully, nodding with understanding, but Kyle knew it was more than just the time apart from Mauricio that was bothering her. There was a deeper sense of frustration, of wanting to know what her life would look like moving forward. Everyone's asking me, are you getting divorced? Are you getting divorced? Kyle had continued. It's like I'm supposed to have the answer to that. But I don't. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm anxious. I'm impatient. I want to know what my life is going to be. Her therapist had asked why it was so difficult for her to take the same approach as Mauricio, embracing this time as an opportunity for growth, for exploration, for personal freedom. At first, Kyle had been hesitant, defensive even. But slowly, she had admitted what she had been unwilling to acknowledge for so long. She was jealous. I suppose I could, she had said, her voice small. I could be having fun too, but it's just hard, you know. I'm here, alone. It was the first time Kyle had voiced her feelings so openly, and it had left her feeling vulnerable. She wasn't used to feeling like this, unsure, uncertain, and raw, but she couldn't deny it any longer. Her emotions were tangled in a web of confusion, and she wasn't sure how to unravel them. Since the announcement of their separation, the media had been rife with speculation about both Kyle and Mauricio's next steps. Mauricio had been linked to several dates and had been photographed on adventurous outings, often accompanied by friends. But it wasn't just his social life that had made headlines. He'd also been involved in a skiing accident recently, which had forced him to take a step back and recover. Kyle, on the other hand, had found herself in a different kind of spotlight. While there had been no mention of a formal relationship, there had been whispers about her connection to country singer Morgan Wade. They had grown close, and Kyle had admitted during a recent Amazon livestream that they were very good friends who care about each other. But even though the media loved to spin the narrative, Kyle wasn't ready to make any bold statements about her personal life. It was easier to keep things vague and maintain her privacy. Her relationship with Mauricio may have been at a standstill, but there was one thing they both agreed on: their children. Portia, the youngest of their daughters, was their priority, and neither of them wanted to disrupt her life more than necessary. Kyle had even revealed that she no longer had a shrine to Mauricio in her home, something that had been a part of their life for years. She didn't need constant reminders of a life that was no longer hers. Dorrit Kemsley, her friend and fellow cast member, had recently revealed that she still kept a picture of her ex PK Kemsley in her home. Kyle had found that revelation poignant. But for her, moving forward meant making space for new memories, even if that meant letting go of some of the old ones. Later that week, Kyle sat across from her therapist again, the room feeling intimate and calm. The conversation was different now, more reflective. She had spent the last few days thinking about everything that had been said, processing the layers of grief and frustration, jealousy and hope that she had been feeling. The emptiness of the house was still there, but it wasn't as suffocating. It felt more like a space she could breathe in, even if it wasn't completely hers yet. I've been thinking a lot about what you said last time, Kyle began, her voice steady. About why I can't just live my life the way Mauricio it is. Why I can't just embrace this time apart and see it as a chance for growth. I think I was scared of what it would mean for me if I started living for myself. It's like if I do that, it's admitting that things are really over, and I'm not ready to admit that. Her therapist nodded. It's understandable. Change is hard, especially when it feels like you're losing a part of yourself in the process. Kyle smiled weakly, but there was something different in her expression now. A flicker of acceptance, perhaps. Yeah, but maybe it's not about losing anything. Maybe it's about discovering something new. Maybe I can create a new version of myself.